Hello, thank you so much for being here. We're going to get started. My name is Erin Barth, and I'm a teacher at Wood Creek High School. I teach English, and over the summer became a Google Apps for Education certified trainer.
And I'm Whitney Cottrell. I'm an assistant principal at Rockland High School. Prior to joining Rockland High School this year, I was at Wood Creek High School with Erin. I was a teacher and instructional technology coach at Wood Creek for the last 20 years. And so I'm transitioning into a new role, but Erin and I still work together as we're both certified educators and trainers. And so we wanted today to show how we used Google Apps and other applications together to really accelerate and deepen the learning in our classes. On this slide, if you go to my name, whitneycottrell.org, that will take you to my site. And there's a couple things I'll have you look at prior to getting started with the presentation today. So it's simply my name. It doesn't have to be capitalized, whitneycottrell.org. 2 T's, 2 L's. So it should take you to this site. And under the CapCUE Tech Fest information, there's a Google form, contact information. If you could fill out while I'm giving you some background, it will help Erin and I track every attendee and how we can best tailor our presentations. So although Erin and I have both been integrating technology into our classroom for years and serving as tech trainers, we became familiar with Google Apps for Education in 2014, actually February 2014, when Roseville High School hosted the first GAFE Summit in the area. That was the first time I had ever used Google Apps, but it became quickly apparent that it was something that I wanted to use in my classroom, especially with the collaboration features. And so Erin and I started strategizing ways we could use Google Apps with our students. It just so happens that shortly after that, our district allocated 14 Chromebook carts to each of the 5 high school sites in the district. And Erin and I were 2 of the 14 teachers who were given a cart full time so that we could experiment with one-to-one in our classes, figure out, the pros and cons, how we would use them if they were ours on a full-time basis. And so it's through that experimentation that really Erin and I figured out a whole lot of things that were great to do and things that we didn't want to do. One of our favorite features of Google Apps was being able to collaborate and share with each other and our students, but then we quickly realized what a chaotic mess sharing can be. Erin taught English 10 and was paired with me for AP Euro. So we had over 100 students and assigning essays and getting them shared. Our shared folder was quickly inundated with with documents. In addition, we were trying lots of different apps, not just Google Apps, but lots of different sites to integrate into our classroom since we had these Chromebooks on a full-time basis. And so we had to figure out how to navigate using our time efficiently. We didn't want to be writing all these websites on the board saying, okay, now go to here, type it in, and the kids going, what? Is that lowercase? Is that uppercase? And so we quickly realized we needed a central location for our classes to go and decided to use Google Sites as our class hub. The second to the last tab with the title of this session, Unleashing the Power of Google Apps, is a screenshot of our site. If you click on it, it should take you to our block site that looks like this. And you should be able to click on that screenshot and take you right here. So we decided that instead of having 2 different websites, we would streamline the process even further and just create one site for both of our classes. And so we had AP Euro, we had English 10. The kids would come into class, open up their Chromebook, and they would go directly to this site, first thing that they did when they came to class, and it quickly became a habit. I'll show a few things that we integrated. I'm going to skip daily tasks because that's the main meat of the presentation. And so we decided one of the first things we were going to do was to integrate our Google Calendars right there on the site. There's only a few things on here right now, but students then would be able to see their due dates on the Google Calendar, and both Erin and I shared our calendars together, so they had all of their due dates in one central location. We made the calendars public so that parents and students could see all of the due dates on the calendar, thus eliminating any extra emails or phone calls that we had to attend to because everyone had all the information embedded right there. We also created a unit materials tab. That didn't work. That's okay. I was logged into something else. We have multiple logins, so sometimes we run into a glitch in our presentations. AP Euro's on the left, creating a unit folder on my drive and simply sharing the entire folder on my website eliminated the need for me to share individual documents with students. So going through and organizing my drive I just will go through here really quickly, Erin. Organizing my drive in folders allowed me to go ahead and put all of my materials for every unit in that folder. Everything in the folder automatically has the sharing permissions, and students have access to all resources they need for that unit right there on the website. Again, eliminating the need for them to search anywhere to find those materials. Very similar, I created an essays and a DBQ tab, as well as you can see going through the website, in which not only did I put documents, but I was also able to put screencasts in there as well. So in AP Euro, they would have to write document-based essays, which is a skill that they have to develop. And so I would make skill-based screencasts in which I would guide them through the process, and then I was able to upload those in addition to documents right there on the site. So if students missed part of the instruction in class, they always had their class hub to go to as a resource. Both Erin and I were able to put links to our various Google Plus sites, Google Classroom, anything that we needed the students to have access to, we would put right there. If you click on the thesis statements tab, this one is a little bit different. This I created as an announcements page, not a web page. And what this did is it served as a discussion board. One of the ways to improve student writing as quickly as possible is for them to give each other feedback, for them to read other feedback that read feedback I'm giving to other students. And so on this site, every title where it says Essay 4 is its own little mini web page / discussion board. And so if I'm having a little bit of glitches here, I would post a prompt for an essay, and then students were required to then post their thesis statement. This allowed me to give feedback to the students, and everyone could read everyone else's thesis statement. They could also read my feedback to students, and then they would give each other feedback as well. And last but not least, we have the Daily Tasks tab. So if you could click on the Daily Tasks, we're going to actually start at the bottom. So as you can see, as a class hub, I organized the daily tasks by date. We taught in a block format, and so we would rotate when we saw the students. I did not want my students going to their drive or going to classroom and switching back and forth, and so I decided that I would embed everything right here in the daily tasks. So if you look on the first one, January 26th, 27th, it gives them a quick agenda. And then using this site as my hub, I was able to embed quite a few different types of web pages or websites and materials. The first students were creating Google slide presentations. And so they were able to share those with me, and I could upload them for student review right there. And student projects that were done as jigsaws such as this. We used Google Slides, created a jigsaw for a chapter, and then they shared those presentations and uploaded them right to the site. We were able to cover 2 chapters in one class period by using the Google Slides and being able to share. And I guess we're glitching on our projector here. Maybe I can fix that. In addition, you don't just have to use the Google Apps. I could link PDFs for students where they didn't need to actually complete something using Google Docs. Just link my PDF right there. And then as I started to experiment, going to January 28th, using Google Docs, I went ahead and linked directly to my classroom. So when my students were to take notes in class, I created a template in Google Docs, and I would link it directly to my classroom so that students weren't navigating and losing time between 2 sites. If they click the link, it takes them right to their ISMS notes as a Google Doc, and in classroom you're able to make a copy for every student. And so I would create some type of basic template for their notes. And in the basic template then for each liberalism, conservatism, the students would be able to take notes on the side. They also shared their notes with each other. They added information in that they may have missed during the lecture in class. If anyone was absent, they would also share the notes that they took in class with people who were absent. And so that helped them make up for the lost time from class. I used the same concept for quick writes. That's quick write number 6. And then for another Google app, what we decided to do was to use Google Sheets and a site called Flippity.net. My students were required to create flashcards for vocab words. And Flippity.net is a great way to make online flashcards. If you click on the vocab, you will see that we have a list of vocab words and the definitions. This is a template. If you go to flippity.net, it gives you the template and you type in the information. It creates 2 sheets. At the bottom, the tab for the second sheet, get link here. After you type or the students type in their information, then you simply click here to get your Flippity.net cards. And it changes what's in my spreadsheet to flashcards, online flashcards that the kids then have access to. Not only does it create the flashcards, the students could also print it out as a list. It creates a word cloud from the terms or the information. And one of my favorite features that I make my kids use all the time, and they aren't my own children, that they aren't very happy about, is the quiz. It will create, on that last tab at the top, it'll create a quiz so that students can test themselves on the flashcards. And so having this link right in here, again, we're not going to multiple sites, and we're making sure that we are using our time efficiently. Also, by using Flippity and having the template, it automatically has these flashcards and this sheet on their drive. In addition, we have video embedded. In my class, we would watch TED Talks quite often. And of course, it's not working. Embedding the TED Talk right in to the site, but also being able to use a Google form in order, as students are watching the video, to be able to have their Chromebooks open, and then they're able to answer questions based on the video. Using the Google form, I embedded the video right there in the form for students who were absent or students who needed to come in during our intervention period. And so then they had access to this. They could put their earbuds in, use the Chromebook, and they were able to do the assignment on their own without further instruction from me trying to bring up the video, show it to the whole class, so I could have a wide range of activities going on at the same time. A great way to embed video in Google Forms to differentiate instruction. Using that same premise, during PowerPoint presentations or a slide presentation, we know that students tend to zone out. So one way that I tried to get more attention during that time period was to make it more interactive, in which they had their Chromebooks open, they were following along, and I made a Google form that followed a PowerPoint that we were looking at on romantic art, not one of their favorite subjects. And so I wanted to make sure I was having them engaged in some way. So I picked a few of the paintings that were embedded in the presentation. They had their notes out in a tab as well on their Chromebooks for romantic art, the characteristics. And when we came upon a painting that was in their form, they then had to look at it and really do kind of an analysis of the painting, and then they had to indicate which of the characteristics, romantic characteristics, that painting reflected. I could then have my sheet open in my tab, see their responses as they're answering, and then project those, and we had a discussion right there embedded in the middle of the presentation, and the students were able to really pick apart which characteristics did it reflect. And we were able to have a discussion and them go back and forth and really justify their response. And so it made the level of engagement in a simple PowerPoint of romantic art go up dramatically. I'm not going to play this for you, just simply because you would be bored stiff, but in all of my lectures and all of the units, using an iPad and a couple different apps, Explain Everything and EduCreations, I created basically screencasts, or my students called them audio lectures for each of the topics. So taking some simple slides or PowerPoints and then lecturing, being able to write on the slides with my iPad, and then always uploading those to the sites as well. Not only for the students who were absent, but for students who took longer to process the information. I would have a number of students go home after a lecture, watch these audio lectures, and really reinforce and fill in where they missed some notes. Students also liked these before the test, where they would loop all the audio lectures, thinking that that would eliminate the need to study if they just listened to all my lectures in a row. Unfortunately, I think it put them to sleep in a lot of cases. So another way to bring all of those together. Using video integrated into the lessons, great way for the students to gain their attention and really have them do something with the video. So I have a YouTube video that I'm going to show you, and a quick example of how I used a YouTube video that seemingly had nothing to do with European history to help focus them on what they were doing in class. So I showed this at the beginning of class to my students, and then they would go back to their daily tasks and they would click on the Socrative. So if you guys could click on Socrative and join room. And your name is required. So it should have, I'm not sure why, here we go. It was prior to the big exam that my students were getting ready to take, and so we needed to focus in on all of the things that they had done well, what they wanted to improve on, and really get them in the mode that they are constantly learning, and what they've learned about themselves as a learner and a student. And so putting up a Socrative and a quick question, short answer question, or a quiz, then the answers will show up here. You can have your students include their name or a class number or a student ID number instead of their names. But as students answer, then their responses show up on the screen. It's a great way to initiate conversation, dialogue with the students, even initiate student-to-student discourse, not just whole class discussion, discussing answers with a partner. When you have more than one answer up here, you can have students vote on which response they think is most applicable. If it was a thesis statement, a prompt, and everyone was posting a thesis statement, then they could vote on which thesis statement they thought followed all of the requirements or the criteria. And so again, engaging the students in discourse and conversation that way. The back to the site and the daily tasks, the Manchester DBQ again incorporates all of the things that we've talked about. And the last site that I'm going to take you to is up at the top under imperialism. If you click on the Age of Imperialism, this takes you to a Thinglink. And for Thinglink, for imperialism, I wanted them to visualize the areas that we were talking about and being able to look at the similarities and differences in imperialism in Africa and Asia. And so on the Thinglink, when your mouse hovers over the map, the first, of course, it's not going to be working right now. The first presentation, for some reason, would be on imperialism, and in every other location. For instance, in Africa, when they would hover, it was a lecture, a PowerPoint with a screencast on imperialism in Africa that they would watch and then answer questions at the end. You can link pictures, you can link video to the Thinglink, and it's a way to visually organize the information. Students also created Thinglinks as well, organizing their content as we were going through European history. They could link their notes on a map of Europe, however they wanted to visually organize the information as well. And again, all of the different sites and web pages that we're utilizing, by creating one site for them to go, really makes efficient use of the time. My students were never having to navigate between sites. They were never having to ask me, what was that website again? Because they knew once they had my site bookmarked, they could go there, they knew immediately what to do, and then their workflow became pretty automated as far as going to the Class Hub on a daily basis. Using Google Classroom, that enhances the experience a bit. It just eliminates the use or the need for sharing back and forth in order to organize everything into folders. And Erin's going to go a little more into Google Classroom.
From the site, often when I have an assignment due, I will put a link directly to Classroom. Students know classroom.google.com, but it is really easy if they're already on that page looking at our agenda, just to be able to click on the assignment. And for instance, I would have Lord of the Flies survey, and then I would have a hyperlink to Google Classroom, where they would go and they'd find their assignment. Oftentimes people ask, well, should I just have a Google site? Should I just have Google Classroom? Which one is best for me? And what I found as an English teacher, and I think that most of you with any discipline will find, is you need both. Right now, Google Classroom, there are a lot of new features which I will talk about today. But this is more of a repository where students turn in work and it's organized. for you in a folder. You can create interactive assignments, which is what I'm going to show you today. You can grade their work directly from Google Classroom, which is really time effective for teachers. But Google Sites gives you a little bit more flexibility. It has the different pages, and as Whitney already said, we created a links or resources page where you could have that for the students. Google Classroom I use when I have an assignment the students need to turn in digitally. So I'm just going to start with showing you how to create an interactive assignment. This is just my test classroom. So there's a new feature, so those of you who used Google Classroom before but maybe haven't used it for a couple of months, there's now a plus sign at the bottom, and you can click there and you can either create an announcement, an assignment, you can ask a question, which is really fun for the students, or post an old announcement, repost I should say. So I'm going to click on the assignment and I'm just going to title it interactive, and I'm sorry that my back is to you. I wish that there was a podium here. Interactive assignment test. Before I want to assign it, I need to make sure that I've attached all of my documents. For instance, if you want to attach a Google Doc from Drive, you can do that after, but once you've already pressed assign, you can no longer make a copy for a student. I learned that the hard way. You can have students view or edit a document, but you can't make a copy for each student. So you can attach things directly from your computer here with the paperclip. I usually just go straight from Google Drive, because even if I have a Microsoft document or a PDF, they're saved in my Google Drive folders. So here I'm just going to go to my English 10, which I saw. Oh, here it is. It just moved. Okay. And I'm just going to go to the Lord of the Flies folder. That's the unit we're on right now. And so if I wanted to give them the synthesis reminder document, I can add that here. And then I want to just make sure that I make a copy for each student. This is what I was saying before. Once you actually assign it, you will no longer be able to make a copy for each student. It's not the end of the world, but it saves a lot of time for us. I also like to put, you can put YouTube videos. So Lord of the Flies trailer. So it will search YouTube for you, and you can find the appropriate video, and you can add it there. You can put links to different websites. I have the students read the biography of William Golding first. I do give them his website, and so you could link it there. So for the first assignment, or for any assignment, they have all the materials that they need. You can attach, as I've already said, docs, PDFs. You can also do slides. And when the students turn in their work and they go to create their assignment, they can create a PowerPoint, a movie, any kind of document or program that they can use on Google Drive, they can submit as an assignment. So then you click Assign. You can also select a due date and a time. This one's the 28th. But what's really great about this is once it's assigned, it automatically creates a folder for you in your Google Drive. So when I first started using Google Docs, and Whitney talked about this, we would just share it with our students, and then, or they would share back to us, and then my incoming drive or folder was a mess. I was receiving hundreds of documents, and then I was trying to organize them. What I love about Google Classroom is that you go in and it automatically creates a folder for you. And as you can see, I have a lot of classroom sites, which I've archived most of them. But here's instructional technology training. And I just created this assignment, interactive assignment test. And the folder is right there. So then students would go to, and unfortunately, our view and their view looks different. But if they clicked on this interactive assignment test, right here, or up here, it would have a button called Create. So then they could go to Create, and they could create a Google Doc, a Google presentation. any kind of Google app, and then do their work right there. And then on the upper right-hand corner, it just says turn in. So when they're finished, they just turn it in. I'm going to show you in my Google Classroom an assignment that's already been turned in. So let's see. So the students just did a Lord of the Flies survey, and so these students have already turned it in. I can go through, I can click on the first document and just see his answers. Now, one thing that I learned about probably this time last year was something called Groobrics and Doctopus. So that is a way that you can grade your students' papers and give them feedback, and you never have to leave a student document again. So this, and I have a handout I can share with all of you, a step-by-step process on how to create Groobrics. It is a little bit confusing and time-consuming, so I'm just going to ask that you just follow along with me, and then if you have specific questions, I can get your email addresses and share the handout with you. So the first thing that you have to have when you're going to create a Groobric is a rubric. So you just create a spreadsheet, and then you have to go to add-ons, and you have to add Doctopus. So I already have Doctopus, but if I didn't have it, you would just click Get Add-ons, and then you would just type it in. And then it comes up, and yours would say free, and you would download that. So you have to have Doctopus, and you have to get Groobric from the Chrome store. Again, I know there's a lot of information here, and I'll give that to you, and I have a step-by-step handout. But once you have your rubric, you just click add-ons, and then you click launch for Doctopus. And then what you have the option to do is automatically ingest this into Google Classroom, and which will generate your roster for you. I know some people were using G-class folders and other ways to get their class rosters. I find this much easier. So over here, and I'll zoom in if I can. So you have the option to select your roster, and you would just ingest it from Google Classroom. So it will bring up all of your active classes. So English 10, 2B. And then you select the assignment, Lord of the Flies survey. And it's taking longer. Okay, there we go. I always leave this box only ingest files that are turned in. I just leave it unchecked because I want it to ingest it as students are turning it in, because I'm usually creating this as I know, or as I've assigned it, not as I've actually collected it. Then you click ingest. And then I'll just take a second. And now it starts building your roster here. The next step is that you'd have to attach your Groobric. And so I think the easiest way when that comes up, oh, look at that. So I usually do this literary analysis rubric. This must be a new feature. It used to just show a search bar and then you type it in, but it's bringing up my rubrics, and so I'm just going to attach the literary analysis rubric. And then once it's attached, I go back to my classroom folder in my drive, and I never leave it to grade the papers. I don't go back to classroom.google.com. You can. Okay, so then you see that it's there. So now I'm going to go back to my classroom folder for the Lord of the Flies survey, and I'm going to click on, well, I think I already had Andre's open, but I'm going to click on Andre's again. Up here where my cursor is, there's a little eyeball. And when that eyeball appears, you know that you can use Doctopus now with your Groobric. And so you click on that, and it will bring you to another page with that student essay and the rubric now at the top. course, I clicked on, I don't need my microphone, sorry. I accidentally had 2 Lord of the Flies surveys in there. I think I'm in the wrong folder. So let me just go back to this one. Yeah, let's try that. All right, hopefully that works. There it is. So it's, oh, Erin Barth, RJ, no Doctopus Groobrics were found for this. Okay, well, I just ingested it, so I'm not exactly sure what the glitch is right now, but anyway, so what, and I'm going to keep going through my presentation so I don't spend time doing this, but I'll go back to it at the end. But essentially, the rubric will come up at the top, and you just click each category, what score the student received, and then you press a button that says email scores to student. And so once you're finished grading, you click that button and it will send the email to the student with just the rubric, how he or she did, and then take you to the next student's assignment so that you don't actually have to leave that page at all, which saves us a lot of time. Some additional features of Google Classroom, it's a new feature just as of a couple of days ago. It automatically syncs with your Google Calendar, and it syncs it for teacher and student. So I'll show you my calendar. Here I have, let me just refresh it to make sure. I don't know why it's so small. So on the 25th, this survey was actually due. So if I click on it, you can see assignment Lord of the Flies survey. All of these here, it automatically puts it in your calendar. It automatically puts it in the students' calendars, and I have all of my students download the Google Calendar app on their phone. I personally like it better than the calendar that came on my iPhone. When you put in your location, it'll show a picture of your location, it'll show a map. It sends you notifications, and so for the students, they download the calendar app, and then I put an assignment into Google Classroom. They get an email that I've created an assignment, and they get a calendar notification when it's due. It'll notify them immediately that it's coming due, and then they can change their settings, but the default is 1 day before. So then they don't really have to do anything but just look at their phone, and they have all of their information there. Another new feature that is really great for teachers is that if you are on a website, say I wanted to put this website on my classroom, I mean it is Google Classroom, but I'm going to try it anyways. You can go to the Chrome store and download the app, add to Classroom, and you just click it there, it's in the bar, and then it will bring up all of your different classrooms, and you can select which class you want this page to be added to. So I'm just going to select that, and then it pushes it out to the students. So now if I go back, well, you can capture a website and push it to your Google Classroom. Some of the other things that I love about Google Classroom, and you can do this, we talk a lot about collaboration and how with the Common Core, it's about students working together. So they can obviously do that through Google Docs, and it doesn't have to be done through Classroom, it could be done on sites. But what I did a lot last year is I created web or a Google Classroom page for all of my classes. So we shared 4 blocks. I have 4 blocks this year again of the AP Euro English class. And so I created a page, this is from last year, Lord of the Flies, all blocks, and they wanted to call it the swag point competition because they were competing with each other. But it was a great place for me to be able to give them resources for assignments and collaborate with them, but they also used it as a way to collaborate with each other across all the class periods. So as we were writing this essay, they were doing a synthesis essay, and students would ask each other questions, or Mrs. Barth, where'd you say you posted the differences between the philosophers? And then I had a sign-up sheet. What we did with our presentations is I was able to get the band room, and so I could bring both blocks from period 2 and then both blocks from period 3 to see each other's presentation. So they signed up for that. But then they began helping each other. So they were supposed to do it in MLA format. And so Casey found how to do a hanging indent on Google Docs because it's a little bit different than on Microsoft Word. So then he decided he was going to share it with the class. So now 100 and something kids have access to this. Jacob found a really good article that had to do with our topic. And this person was helping them with MLA formatting. They could ask each other questions. I also had, and I know you saw all of the classrooms that I had. I've archived most of them, so you can always archive a class and then go back and restore it. But with literature circles, I gave all of my students a book list. And then I allowed them to pick which book they wanted to read. And then I'd place them in groups according to book, but not according to class. So someone in 2A might be reading the same book as someone in 3B. And then they would have weekly assignments on their Google Classroom where they would discuss the book. So it was online collaboration, not during class time, which was good because they could do all of this at home or during lunch, but then it didn't limit them to having the discussion with the same kids in the same class. Because as we all know, oftentimes there's a few kids that dominate the class discussion and the other ones just listen. It's really nice for them to get different perspectives and to be able to talk to people that they don't normally see. So I would create a group or a classroom based on the book, pardon me, and then add all the students to it, and then they could talk about it. What's the significance of each protagonist's profession? And then the other student answers. It shows a difference from person to person and how their profession can change their opinion on something. They would create their own surveys. They would come up with their own questions. And so it was just a really easy way for them to share with each other and for me to monitor it and also help them. Another new feature is when a student turns an assignment in, there's an option for them to post a private comment. And last year I was neurotically going back and checking and making sure no one was posting comments so that I didn't miss anything. Now if they post a comment to their assignment, sometimes I get, I don't know if I did this right. Can you look at it? I just turned it in, but I'm afraid that I did it incorrectly. And so last year, I would see that after they already turned it in. Now it will send you an email when they post a private comment. So that's really nice. And I feel like with Google Classroom, every time I think of like, oh, it would be so great if something like this happened, it seems like they're constantly updating it, which is wonderful. They're listening to feedback. You can give them feedback or make suggestions, but it's changing. If you look, they have on the Google training site updates to all the different apps that they have. If you go to Google Classroom, it seems like every month there are new updates that's making this just more efficient. One thing that Whitney and I unfortunately didn't have last year when we taught was the ability to be co-teachers on Classroom. It wasn't that big a deal. What we would end up doing is just sharing the folder with each other so we could still access it. But now you can just add a co-teacher, and that teacher has access to everything. That teacher can also add assignments. And when you teach a block class like we teach, where yes, she was teaching the history component and I was teaching the English component, we could grade essays together. We could have them write an essay and she could be looking for content-specific information. I could be looking to see that they're proving their thesis, and it's really nice this year being able to have a co-teacher. And that would work for elementary aged students with, maybe the teachers do share the same classroom, or core classes in middle school. So there's just a lot of things that you can do with Classroom. But again, my favorite part of it is that everything is automatically sorted for you. It saves me a lot of time. My daughter's in 4th grade, and I just went to her back to school night on Thursday, and her teacher, they just started using Google Docs, and they're really excited about it. And she is talking about, we're saying, I'm having all the students share with me, and she was talking, and I talked to her after class, or after back to school night, and I had just mentioned Google Classroom, and she hadn't heard of it before. And she said that she spends so much time just going through finding that particular assignment, because they'll have multiple assignments they're working on at the same time. And if they're just sharing it with you, you could potentially have hundreds of documents shared with you on a daily basis. And so this is a way just to streamline it. And again, when you use Groobrics and Doctopus, and you don't have to be an English teacher to do that, you can have a rubric for any discipline, for whatever it is you're looking for, but then that makes your life also easier because you never have to even deviate from one page. And I'm going to go back and try to show that to you in a minute. I'm not sure what the time is. 11:55. So, and I think I do want to show you Groobrics and Doctopus. I think that's all I have for, oh, there is one new thing that I haven't had the need to use, but oftentimes it's really hard. So Whitney and I were talking about this because now she's in Rockland's district, and I'm still in Roseville's district, so we wouldn't have access to each other's classroom or other docs. On Classroom now, they have what's called a whitelist domain for Classroom, where you can, if there are two different districts that both use Google Apps, you can have permissions. However, it has to be set up by your admin. So whoever is in charge of the administrative side of that domain has to specify the setting in Classroom. So it can be done, but teachers don't have, like I don't have access to that for my district, but I could send an email to someone in the admin of our district and say, would you please give Whitney sharing rights so that we can work on Classroom together for our technology classes. One thing that Whitney mentioned last time we presented together is that using sites and Classroom has really helped our students become advocates for themselves, but also, I think you called them project managers, where they are setting up study groups. They are setting up documents and assigning each other, delegating tasks to each other about how they're going to get through this exam. And they've really taken ownership of their learning, which has been amazing for us to see. We teach 10th graders, 15-year-olds doing things that I didn't know how to do until I was an adult. So it's really opening up possibilities for the students, and it's making our teaching more efficient, but really fun. It's fun to see what the students can do, and they're so good at technology. They're constantly showing us other apps or other programs that we can use, which just helps my teaching evolve. Yes?
When you click the create assignment, you were
Yeah.
talking about, there was a selection there. In mine, I'm only seeing like either save as draft or assign. I thought there was something else you had there.
Okay, so when I was showing, I think what you're talking about, and correct me if I'm wrong, is when I was attaching things from my drive, I was showing you that you can make a copy for a student or a student can view.
Yes.
So the only way that you will see that is when you click on to attach a document or to attach something. So I'll show you again. So when we create an assignment here, and then I'm going to link to my drive. I'm just going to I'll just pull up a subplan because it's right there. It's fine. Then here, right next to the doc, you have 3 options where they can view, they can edit, or you can make a copy for them.
Okay, that's where it is. Oh, okay. And I did create one, but I can view just with the test one.
That's right. And so now
That's
if you
really
wanted
important,
to make a copy for each student, you would have to go back and delete that assignment and do a new one. And I'm not exactly sure why, because if you go to edit, you can change it from view to edit or edit to view, but the make a copy for each student option disappears. And I'm not sure why. So if you know that you can make a copy for each student and you're not seeing it, it's because you've already created your assignment and pressed assign. I have a feeling it's because once you click assign, it's pushed out to the students, and so giving them, it would be hard to go back and then give them a copy of the assignment that's already been pushed out to them. But see, I'm imagining next time I do something like this in January, it'll probably be fine. Yeah, it'll be fine. But that is good. And it's helpful. Sometimes I don't do that. Sometimes I will have students can edit the file. That means that all students can be on that same document at the same time. Sometimes that's a really great thing. Sometimes it's terrible. Right. And it could really go wrong. And they are so cute and want to delete what other people are doing to be funny, or they'll change the fonts. In class the other day, they were doing a group assignment where I just had, each group is 4 people. So it said, create a document and share it just with the people at your table and with me, and that's your group assignment that you're going to upload to Classroom. Every time I walked by a group, 3 of them are furiously working, and one of them is changing the font. Just keeps changing the font, and they're like, oh no. So then I had to, tell me he was no longer allowed to be on that document, and he would have to write his contributions. And so it can be good or bad. What I really like to do when we're all editing a file together is project it on the board so everyone can see, and it holds them accountable. And they're all they're different colors, and it shows their name when they're typing. And so that accountability piece really keeps them on task. And it's fun when I do it a lot with close reads. We'll have a document up there, and I say, I want everyone to make 2 annotations, but I want everyone in the class to see what other people think. And so just by projecting it seems to really direct their attention and make them more responsible. But there's a lot of pretty amazing things we can do here, and it's, like I said, it's really made my job fun and easier in many ways.